Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Fixx Wrestling Podcast. Today I have got the extreme pleasure of having a one on one conversation with none other than the wife of Gentlman Ken Timbs. If you don't know who Gentlman Ken Timbs is, we're about to let you know. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the audience Juanita Timbs. Juanita, welcome. Welcome
Hey,
to the
Ken,
show.
how you doing?
I am doing wonderful today. How are you doing today?
Doing wonderful. It's good to hear from you.
Now, folks, if you do not know, I call this woman Mama. She has I've known her since probably my teenage years, but she really grabbed my heart when her and one of my closest friends, Bodie, came up to me and asked me about my dad. That to me speaks milestones. Excuse me, I got tongue twisted. Mama, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I had a very blessed day today.
That's awesome. You know, you know who we're here to talk about today, right?
Yes, we're here to talk about the gentleman Ken Timbs, the fabulous blonde, fabulosa blondie, the mouth of the South.
This gentleman right here.
Eventually,
Uh, what can you tell me about the gentleman who trained him?
he was trained by Ole and Jean Anderson, um, in Georgia, actually.
Now Ole and Gene were notorious for stretching people and putting potential wrestlers in the sugar hold. Just
Ken
to
was
hear,
very, very athletic. He could have played football for several colleges, but he opted instead to be a police officer. Um, they didn't really want to stretch him. That was not in their wheelhouse of things that were wanted to do.
now I know that you know generally in wrestling the teacher the student becomes a direct reflection on the teacher in whatever they do in their career. So, did Ole and Gene keep an eye on Ken when he was starting out, or how did that work out?
Only kept an eye on Ken. He brought him in Georgia, and he worked on TBS a few weeks, and then they took him up to Mid Atlantic, and Ken worked there 6 weeks. And at the end of 6 weeks, Ellie said, "You're fired. Go home. You're the drizzling shits." So we went home because everywhere Ken went, the family traveled together. And for 9 months, Ken trained religiously and would go every Saturday to TBS and say, "I want to be a wrestler. I want to work for you." And eventually, after 9 months, they gave him a second chance, and that's when his career took off. Dory Funk's the one that bleached his hair, or told him to bleach his hair, and sent him from there to Memphis. And from Memphis, he went to basically out to Southwest. I mean, he also worked for Continental. There's a lot of places, small places in between, weeks in between. But his big career really started out in Southwest Championship Wrestling.
Now he was a tag team champion with Eric Embry, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. And the big
Okay,
career was with the Sheep Herders and with Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers.
okay. What are your thoughts on Eric Embry and your him tagging with Eric?
Eric and Ken were the best tag team ever around, and that's my honest opinion. A lot of promoters thought the same thing, and together they clicked like a well-oiled machine. Ken never clicked that well with anybody else as far as the tag team partner goes, although he had several after that. But Ken wanted to go to different territories, and Eric didn't, so they opted to split ways.
Okay. Now I got wrote down here that the gentleman Ken was a Central States Tag Team Champion.
Yes.
And he was also the NWA World Light Heavyweight Champion down in Mexico,
Yes.
and the U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion. And he also tagged with the legendary Pork Chop Cash.
Yes, he did up in Central States.
Wow. He also had a feud with Pork Chop. Any memories regarding that?
His biggest feud was actually with Rufus Jones up in Central States. They packed out houses. Uh, and when Ken tore his knee up and continued to wrestle, they had boxing matches because Rufus actually got his start in boxing, and
Mm-hmm.
Ken was Golden Gloves, well trained to box and knock your head off.
Oh, okay. How was the gentleman outside of the ring? How did he react to fans outside the ring? Was he always portrayed as a heel, or you know, did he stay in character?
That was his personality. I mean, that was totally his personality. I mean, it's just an extension of his persona. So, yes and no. He was a very private person. There wasn't a lot of people in and out. Although when we lived close to WCW, the front door was always open. The wrestler was always stopping by. But we didn't go a lot of places to do a lot of things that were in big crowds because you get to things like your windshield smashed out. You had to protect the kids. There was a lot to watch and do. So he went places where people didn't know him. We lost
Well,
windshields. I just want you to know we lost a lot of windshields. We had best friends that put windshields back in because it got so expensive.
oh
But
my gosh.
it was really bad in Texas.
Yeah, apparently they take their wrestling very seriously.
They're very serious. Even much more so in Mexico. He got caught up in a riot when he won one of his matches, and they were trying to protect him, get him back to the back, and somebody came in and took him off his feet, and they ripped his ear off his head. Plastic surgeon sewed it back on,
Oh
and
wow.
you had to look close. They did such a beautiful job. You had to look close to see how they had repaired it, but it was smaller than the other ear because the way they had to patch it back together.
Now, you are a tailor, and
Yeah.
you have made several outfits and beautiful dresses as well. Um, but you've made several outfits for pro wrestlers. Can you go into detail who you've made outfits for?
Well, more like who did I not make outfits for? I guess the one of the most interesting ones was for Harlem Heat. I made them for Sister Sherry and Booker T, Stevie Ray. Let's see, I've done stuff for King Kong Bundy. Um, wow, now I can't even think about them because I bring them up on Facebook every so often. Somebody bring up a picture and go, "Oh, I made that." So many masks I made. Wow, this goes out. You ask me, I'll tell you if I made it. But I'll tell you about my first customer was Bill Dundee. Outside of that, the only things I had made for was for Ken Timbs and anybody that he was a partner with, so Eric Embry or Dusty Wolf. But Bill Dundee came to me and wanted me to make him some outfits. I said, well, why not? It's the first time I actually went commercial. He ordered 32 pair of tights so he would have enough to last. And he was actually my first commercial customer.
Oh wow. Now, we have spoken privately. You've also said that you've done work for people like or Steve Austin, Steve Williams before. Have you ever been starstruck by any of these wrestlers that you've met?
No, no, they're people. Like I said, we had an open door. Mick Foley come in. I did his Cactus Jack look. Um, Glenn Givernetti, Disco Inferno, Mr. Jam, and I don't think you know him, but Steve Lawler, Terry Lawler. There's a lot of them. They just came over. They would come over and visit while they were on their way to WCW and
Mm-hmm.
or come back by Big Show. Uh, Armstrong's Brad Armstrong came by. Um, man, we've seen Scott. We've seen the youngest one. because a lot of them came by. I either met them or they met with me so I could measure and make their outfits. But they were just people. I mean, they're really a lot of them were really, really good people and fun to be around and fun to talk to. But being starstruck, no, not really.
What is your one of your greatest memories? Now, what is your great one of your greatest memories about professional wrestling?
Well, I used to go to the Omni and watch professional wrestling before before I became part of the wrestling family, and to see it at the Omni because it was a round venue, so you could see anything from almost any angle. I mean, I was a fan before, and I what you would call a mark before I became part of the wrestling world.
Well, practically everybody in the wrestling business knows you and knows you very well. Um, what what was your thoughts on the gentleman wrestling in Mexico? How did that work? You said that the family traveled with Gentleman Ken Timbs. Did y'all travel to Mexico as well?
Yes, one of my children was born in Mexico City, Mexico. We we determined when he first started wrestling. So many families broke up. The wrestler would travel. He would be in another state. He would be all by himself, and she'd be all by herself, and she's raising the kids, and he's not making enough money, and the families would have a lot of hard times. They didn't stay together. It just didn't work. Well, we determined that it would work better if we traveled together, so we sucked it up and traveled together. Took the kids with us. Homeschooled 9 kids. Some of them are actually smart. Not too many, but they we when he went, we were in Central States when he sent his promotional stuff to Mexico City, Mexico. And within a couple of weeks, they contacted him, wanted to bring him in. And he told them then that he didn't go in without the family. That you brought him, you brought the family. So what they did was pay for all of us to go. And they set us up in a couple of hotel rooms. And, that's where it began. That's where it started, where it ended. Mexico City, Mexico. But Mexico works in territories, and much like the United States did at that time, and he would work in certain areas for so many weeks because they would have wrestling for so many weeks in the arenas, and then they would have bullfights for so many weeks in the arenas. So they didn't stay like it was here every week. It was just so many weeks, like 6 to 8 weeks, and then you went out, and then you came back in, or you went up to Monterey, or you went over to El Paso. Just depended on which territory needed you. So we traveled all through Mexico, but basically we were based in Mexico City, Mexico, and number 6 was born there.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you. What was the word? I gathered the worst injury you ever seen Ken take was the ear being taken off.
No,
What's
so
the worst injury?
tore his knee up in Central States, and there was no insurance for wrestlers at that time. There was nobody to help them. You out of work, you out of money, and that's the way life went. I was not as prominent with my sewing at that time or providing gear, and we came back to Georgia, and for several months he worked to rehab his knee. There was no way to operate on it. We had a really really good chiropractor that worked with him and worked physical therapy and actually got his knee back where he could wrestle again. And it never stiffened up on or was healed bent like a lot of people's do.
Mm-hmm.
He actually got full use of his knee back.
Um, what was your thoughts? What was your thoughts on him wrestling in Mexico? Because from what I've seen, I haven't seen a lot of his matches in Mexico, but I have heard that he was. What was the name of the tag team he was in Mexico?
He had the Gringo Locos with him. They wrestled in triplets. There was 3 in the ring. He had tag teams with him in some places. He had different ones they put him with. I mean, it just depended on where he was at and who they wanted to put him with.
Mm-hmm.
So he would be like the leader. they would have the main wrestler and then two other people, and you had to pin either the main wrestler or the other two for that bout to end. They would wrestle three bouts in one match. You know, 2 out of 3 falls.
Okay, I got you. I got you. Now he has. Oh Lord, had told me what the name of the belt was that he had held in Mexico, but it slips my mind right now.
Like him, what?
One
If I
of the,
bring it up, I'd have brought a picture of it. I have duplicates of. No, I don't have duplicates of that one. Let me see. Ah, maybe. Oh, I can't get the picture off the wall. Let me see if I can get the picture off the wall. Um, yeah, it's this belt. But see, you don't really get a good picture because pictures weren't good back then.
right.
So,
What is what was the name of the belt? Because I've got down that he was the NWA World Light Heavyweight Champion. He did a lot of work for the NWA, did he not?
well, he worked in a lot of NWA territories at that time because the NWA was prominent. But then when it became just Jim Crockett and Jim Crockett took over everything, then a lot of the territories dropped off and were no longer with the NWA.
Okay. So basically, when Jim Crockett bought the NWA, that was essentially the death of the territories, the start of it.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the start of it. But the cable TV was had a whole lot to do with it, the demise of territories, because you could see that was the beginning of, hey, we can see it for real and without having to get somebody to video it and send me a tape or something. We can see it nationwide what they're doing across somewhere else. Joe Pedicino, Superstars of Wrestling, would bring video in from everywhere, so you could actually see every different territory. So it was hard to like work angles that in one place and you not know what already happened there, so you couldn't build off of it. They'd be good guy one place and bad guy the other place, and it just changed the face of wrestling.
Now, now I have a question for you. As you may well know, Billy Corgan, the musician, he has bought the NWA and has owned it for several years.
Yeah.
He is starting to establish NWA territories again.
Yes. I'm
Uh,
familiar.
what's your thoughts on the territory system possibly coming back?
It won't work. It's going to have to change. Every time changes everything, and people change. You can't have what you had in the 1950s. It's not the 1950s anymore. The 60s or the 70s, 80s. You have cable TV. You have people that want instant gratification, and everybody talks to everybody on social media, so you tell everything. There's no secrets. There's no kayfabe's not coming back. You're not now. It's just a suspension of belief, like your movies, and that's what people want. They want to escape for a little bit, and that's what wrestling can offer them is a way to escape, a way to identify with somebody, but to actually bring back small territories, not with TV like it is, because nobody's watching your local TV channels anymore. YouTube is taking over all that, so it's going to be difficult. I'm excited to see a surgence of another wrestling organization because that gives a lot of the independent wrestlers a place to work for, to look forward to working for, a reason to train, a reason to be better than what these little backyard, they call them mud shows. I don't know. There's some really bad wrestling out there in this world. I'm not going to name the places I've been lately that was bad. They're just bad. And it gives them something to work toward. Do I think that a little place that holds 200 people, maybe, and that calls itself a whole territory, and it's only in one town where it's maybe every other week is going to be a territory? No, it's just a place to work. But can it improve? With the right backing, it can improve. But if you don't get bigger venues and you don't draw more customers, then you're not going anywhere.
Well, that leads into a very good next question for you. What are your thoughts? Because and I'm not wanting you to name specific promotions, but what are your thoughts about a a promotion naming their champion the world champion, and yet they do not go outside of that their little promoted area?
It's a joke. Everybody can buy a belt. How many you got sitting? Don't you don't even have to answer. It's a rhetorical question. How many you got sitting in your house? I know how many I got sitting in mine. They're cool. They're fun to play with. They look good hanging on the wall sometimes if you don't have to dust it. But everybody can be the champion now. So you can go buy you a belt. You can put your name on it, and you're the champion. And a lot of people do that. You just call yourself world champion. Does it make you world champion? Not really, but then it's not really the World Series if you only have it in the United States, because we're the only baseball people. We don't have anybody come out from the world to play in our World Series either. We just play our own little game. And so it works sort of on that same thought process. As if they build these territories, can they change the attitude? No, because some of these wrestlers are happy with what they are, what they do, and how they act. And they like having their little belt and their pats on the back and the three girls that show up to see them.
Well, uh, well, as a matter of fact, we have a couple of people that chimed in. Facebook group user that just says, hey guys, hey Facebook user." We've also got another one that says, "Love you guys." That's possibly a friend of either of y'all, of you or me or both.
Maybe somebody really does love us.
And Harold Bernard Taylor's he chimed in about the territories. It's not going to work because they don't have an infrastructure to make it work.
Telling the truth. I know he is, and he's telling the truth. You can't make. That's what I said. You can't bring the '50s back because they'll never exist again. You have to find a new way, new ideas, new concepts. It's out with the old. I mean, I'm sorry, give it up. Ladies not gonna live in the kitchen no more, barefoot and pregnant, and we're not gonna have territories like we did in the '50s.
Well, Mr. Taylor also said exactly, Juanita. That's what I said on our podcast. Everyone has access to titles, lessens the importance of the title.
It's true. It was like, okay, the mystique of the masked man. I mean, they used to be, man, if they wore a mask, you didn't see their face. You didn't know what they looked like. You didn't, and it's still that way in Mexico. They don't enter the arenas, the area. Some of them go so far as they wear that mask all the time when they're out in public. But here, they wear the mask, maybe sometimes in the building and wrestle, and then they tell everybody who they are. There's no mystique to it. You can buy a mask. That's easy to buy. I make a lot of them. And so there's nothing to identify it as being different. That's the reason why I keep emphasizing, if your wrestlers dress and look like that person sitting on that front row, maybe they should be sitting on the front row with that fan instead of inside the ring. I mean, you have to set yourself apart. You got to be something different. I stated at the beginning, I'll state again. You have 8 seconds to get their attention. If you're lucky, you have 15 seconds. You don't have their attention within that first 8 to 15 seconds, and they have picked up their device and started looking at it. We didn't have devices 30 years ago.
So no, we didn't. We didn't even have pagers or beepers.
No, so you didn't have something to take your attention away. You didn't get to pull up your device. Oh, they didn't look like that last week when they was over there at Joe Blow's Wrestling. Oh, that's not what they did. Oh, look, they've gotten worse or they've gotten better. It all depends. A lot of them won't even take the time that it takes to train. They just watch a video of WWE or somebody and they attempt to mimic it when they get to the building, and they don't remember how it went, but it doesn't work. And that funny story, I'll tell this funny story because it really is funny to me. Ron West would tell it every year at Christmas time. When Ken first started wrestling, him and Mike Davis wrestled each other all over Georgia, all up in Tennessee, on into Mid-Atlantic. They trained together. They had really good matches. They did a lot of 15-minute Broadways. And this one time up in Chattanooga, Ron West was the promoter up there.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chattanooga at that time, it was in a theater, and the ring was on stage with the curtains pulled far enough over that you couldn't see the wrestlers on each side. And then you sat up, and I was actually sitting up in the balcony. I was far enough back, I shouldn't be able to hear anything, but I could, because it got really quiet. But Ken had watched Wahoo the week before do this Indian war dance, Native American war dance, whatever you call it, and did win. Well, he was supposed to go over that night over Mike Davis. So he said, well, that's what I should do. So next thing you know, you've got Ken dancing around the ring doing the Indian war hoop or whatever. And from the side of one curtain, you see this hot dog fly across the ring. And then you see this giant soda flying across the ring. And then you hear the voice, "Stop that, Ken. You're not no damn Indian." And that was Juan West screaming that from the side. And so, it was a lesson learned, but a lot of them have nobody to teach them that lesson. That you don't, because somebody did that on WWE doesn't make it, or AEW, TNA. You saw it on a video 2 weeks ago. Let's light the place on fire or something. Doesn't make it the right thing to do. You have to learn to build your own identity. So, we need new teachers out there. We need the old wrestlers, or the older wrestlers that are actually experienced, to quit being so secretive with their knowledge. And they need to share what they know and help hold up the young ones. But the young ones, in return, have to show that kind of respect, because you got them both saying, well, the old guy won't help me and he won't do anything for me. And then the old guy tells the young one, well, you don't show me respect, and you don't shut up, and you don't do this and this and this. So it's like a never-ending story. And I've heard that. I've been around the wrestling business for 47 years, and I've heard that for 47 years. So it's not a new thought process. It's just it has never changed.
Okay, so essentially, if you show the respect to the legends, they will in turn reciprocate their knowledge to you.
They should. They don't. It's a two-way street. This is a two-way street. There are some that will sit, and I've had a lot of people come up after Ken passed. A lot of them say Ken spent hours working with them, telling them, talking, showing, in the dressing room, bring them over to the house, work with them, show them what he knew, how things worked, how psychology went. But there's wrestlers that didn't. They want to maintain their secret knowledge, and it does not build the business. It's not for edification. It's just they're, I guess, we'll die with the knowledge. That's a pretty cool thing. We'll just die and keep this with us. But then you left no legacy. You left nothing for the young wrestlers to build on, and that's when you start getting the offset the brewery on fire by lighting a fire in the place or something.
Oh, by the way, Mama, I wanted to let you know that Rhonda popped in and said it's your auntie and sister. That's the one that said love you guys.
I love Rhonda. She is a marvelous person and an asset to the wrestling world. She's always there for somebody if they need somebody. She's always been a lot of help. She's a beautiful person.
I've grown to love her as a person. She's honest, she's straightforward, and she has something a lot of people don't have this day and age, and that's integrity.
She has red hair.
Well, that too.
Yeah, she has red hair. She has fiery temper to go with it. Don't make her mad.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, I try to stay in her good graces. Let's switch gears real quick, because we're going to wrap this up real soon. We both have a mutual friend that we lost here lately, Brian Bodie Green. What's your thoughts and memories of Bodie?
I know a lot of people that are young. I seem to attract people when they're 14. I babysat Terry Lawler. Angela, you wouldn't know her, but she's from Independent. There's a lot of young wrestlers that I've been around all their career. Bodie was 12, 13 when I first met him in Central States. He was in Centralia, Illinois, and they wrestled at the high school there. And his job there was to pass out or sell the programs. And then when the wrestlers went to the back to take showers, they provided towels there, so wrestlers didn't have to take towels. And so he would give the wrestlers the towels that they got out of the shower, the guys, not the girls, the guys that they got out of the shower so they could dry off and all, and then they would throw them in a hamper and be used again. Uh, Wrestlers took towels. I'll just be honest. So anyhow, that night, I don't know what Ken had done to Rufus. Probably told him to pick his cotton or something, because he was always telling everybody we had a plantation and he was going to tie Rufus up in chains and let him pick cotton. It was a really good angle then. It's not now. But so he got really mad because he believed in it. At that time, a lot of people really believed in what they were saying. And Ken took a shower, and Buddy wouldn't give him a towel. Now he had to bring towels with him. He has nothing to dry off on except for either his clothes, and it's below freezing. It got really cold up there. If your hair got wet and you went outside, it would freeze and break off. Not like it is in Georgia where it never gets that cold. And he kept saying, "Hey kid, give me a towel." Kid wouldn't give him a towel. Come on, give me a towel. I'm not gonna give you a towel. You're bad. Bad people don't get towels. They got this little childish argument about the towel. And so Ken went to the promoter and said, "Hey, this kid won't give me a towel." And they drive. And the kid says, "I'll show you." And nobody will get a towel. He took all the towels and threw them in a big trash can and dumped trash on top of it, so all the towels were dirty and nobody got a towel. And he came home, he dried off with this wrestling gear and came home, his hair froze and broke off. It was really funny. Now, it wasn't then. But that was my first interaction with him. And then when Buddy became really sick, we became really good friends. It was a lot of support. He followed Buddy had followed Ken's career and what all he did by getting tapes from other people. Well, I think it was DVDs at that time. Yeah, videotapes, and then it went to DVDs. And for whatever reason, he followed his career. And then Ken had his own chat room at that time, and that's how we became friends, because Ken got to where he couldn't see, so I would type for him, and I typed whatever he said, and that's how I met Buddy online, and that's how he came into my life.
Now, both you and Bodie, y'all came into my life a while back, and my memory is bringing my son to one of Scott's promotions as a little child, and my son looking at your mask, and me just talking to you and talking to Bodie there at the at your table. Now, I wanted to ask you, what's your worst interaction with a professional wrestler? Now, you don't have to name a name, but what is your worst interaction that you've had with somebody?
Worst interaction, well, there's a couple of them. One of them wouldn't order for me because I was a woman. We couldn't talk to a man and have a man tell me what to make. He wasn't going to order anything, so guess what he got? And, wish you one hand in the other, because close your eyes, because that's what he got was nothing. I didn't need his money that bad. But worst interaction, I ran a lot of gimmick tables. And I had a couple of wrestlers that liked to get on my tables and fight or bleed on the stuff or knock it all off, so I got to bend over and pick it all back up. And I got bored with that. I get bored easy. And so I got to where the gentleman had walking canes. Well, I would sell walking canes. I would keep walking, but they had big brass handles on them. You can tell where this is going. Mm-hmm. So about the time a hand would land on my table, the brass handle of the walking cane would land on the hand. I actually broke the guy's hand. Accidentally. We'll say it's an accident. Then they learned to don't touch my stuff, and I won't touch you. The worst thing happened was I set one wrestler up for a knee lift because he had knocked my stuff off my table and had knocked my playpen over. I had babies. I always had a baby with me all the time. I had children forever. And he knocked the playpen over with the baby in it, And don't mess with the mama hen. She gets mad. Mama bear, what mama whatever was mad. She went after him, and the police went after me. So I dropped the wrestler and ran. Because I didn't really want to go to jail. That's not fun. But the other one was another wrestler. They started fighting around the table and knocked. I grabbed the baby just in time. They knocked the stroller over the baby was in. And there was no excuse. You don't need to fight around the gimmick tables. You got plenty of other places to fight. Big buildings. Stay away from tables. Stay away from me. So I learned, and they got to where if they got near me, I just swung. I just did. Then they didn't. They learned. So
We got another message in from Harry Taylor. He says, "I love this conversation. Is it on YouTube?" Yes, actually, we're streaming on Pro Wrestling Junkies. We're streaming on Nerdcast, and we're also streaming on YouTube. You can all you got to do is type in wearenerdcast.com, and it will send you directly to our YouTube page. And while you're there, subscribe. Now, I know we lost Bodie last year.
no, January.
Oh, in January?
January 20th.
It I'll be the first one to say that I've had late night conversations with that man about anything and everything regarding wrestling. He has schooled me so much on things and has corrected me in a paternal way. He has corrected me when I have gotten my facts wrong about the about pro wrestling. I distinctly remember having one conversation with him about who should have been a world champion. Who comes to mind when I bring that subject up? Who do you think should have or had the potential of being a world champion?
There was world champions are political. Who had the political pull? I mean, that's really. Are you asking who had the political pull or who had the abilities? I mean,
The abilities. I'll throw one. I'll throw one out there.
if you want to go for the most underrated wrestler ever, would have been Bobby Eaton. There was not a better wrestler, a better technician, a better locker room person, an all around great person. Who never got any real opportunities because he just didn't. Not the right place, not the right time. Sometimes people got what they didn't, they shouldn't have been there, but timing, politics, money's always involved in everything. And so years ago, I thought Joe LeDuc, he was such a anomaly, and Central States deserved more than what he got, but they didn't feel that he would ever. And because I sat and talked to him for a long time, we used to spend a lot of time. I talked to a lot of wrestlers because I was at hotels. We stayed at the hotels where they stayed, and when they were off nights, they come by and visit and talk. Kids talk. They enjoyed talking to the kids. Kids didn't identify bad guy or good guy. They just like the wrestlers. And Joe LeDuc and I talked for a long time, and he explained that he was not. It didn't matter how good he was not what they looked for, and he didn't have the pull to carry a title that long or that kind of title. So I really can't identify anybody. But like I said, if I say anybody personally, I would say it was Bobby Eaton.
Well, okay. When I bring up the name Magnum TA, would you think that he would be a good world champion during his time frame?
If he hadn't had that accident, that's what they were building for, and I think he would. He had the looks, he had the charisma, he had the following, and that's what they were looking for. But looking all back through the history, I don't know that anybody could have carried it any better than Ric Flair, knowing as many as I know. He just knew what to do with it. He knew how to make everybody mad at him.
Well, speaking of Ric Flair, I thought about this, and the only at the time, the only true world championship would have been the NWA World Championship, because They traveled to Central States, Florida, Georgia, Mid Atlantic, Japan, places like that to defend the title.
Mexico. See, they did
Mexico,
travel,
of course.
traveled to anything that was the NWA territory. So as far as the world title goes, it really went around the world. We're wrestling with Germany, England. So yeah, it traveled. The title belt traveled at one time. Um, but like I said, things change. It's watered down. Titles are watered down now. Um, so it would not be the same.
Basically, in this day and age, the belts behind me, the belts that the wrestlers use, they're nothing but props to accentuate the storytelling.
Basically,
Um,
I
I,
mean, Wolfie has a great one. I'm gonna put House of Timbs on it. It's all him. I mean, that really makes it personal.
now, that leads into a good question and follow up question. What's your thoughts on Wolfgang taking up the mantle of the House of Timbs?
He has the ability to talk a talk, and he has the ability to walk that talk, and that's what his dad could do. His older brother Kenneth that wrestles is actually a much better wrestler, but not as good on the mic, and so it wasn't a well-rounded wrestler. It's just he's good. So Wolfgang is doing an excellent job. He has been out because he got injured. I mean, times are different. You don't get to work 7 days, 8 days, 9 times a week like you used to. Now
Right.
you struggle to get one or two places, and if you're not the promoter's pet,
Mm-hmm.
then a lot of times you just don't get to work in that territory at all. So it's hard to showcase your talent when you have nowhere to really go with it unless you're run your own wrestling organization, and that's why we have so many little ones pop up. Is let's just learn to flop on the floor, and then we'll buy us a ring and rent a. Usually it's National Guard Armory. Now I don't even know where they set them up. Backyard works really good, and fall down a few times, and we call ourselves a professional wrestler. And so that waters down the business, and then you get all the people, and I've worked for a hot dog and a handshake, or maybe a handshake, um, and it becomes no longer professional, becomes a game. It's really, just a silly game. So it becomes difficult for wrestlers to have a place, enough of them to have a place to build and work their art, build their craft.
Well, we're about to wrap this up, but I wanted to do a couple of things. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about Joyce Grable.
Love them.
We are there is about to be an event that's going to be on the Joyce Grable Memorial Show. It's going to be Saturday, November the 4th.
Yeah.
It's 7:30 at Franklin, Georgia. Heard County Parks and Recreation Center. If you're in the area, go by to see some of the legends that are going to be there.
You're
What?
never going to get another opportunity to have this many legends, new, old, whatever, together. You'll never have this opportunity again. So once in a lifetime, be there.
And I wanted to do a quick speed round. I'm going to name a couple of wrestlers' names, and then we're going to wrap this up. Roman Reigns, your thoughts?
Roman Reigns he's in the right place at the right time. I find his abilities, his mic abilities, amazing from time to time, but after a while he gets boring. He's been there forever.
Okay, David Von Erich.
David Von Erich was being groomed for the Ric Flair's title. Untimely death. He was sick. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't alcohol. He died of natural causes in Japan. I feel for him. I feel for the whole Von Erich family. They seem to have had a lot of bad things to happen.
That brings me to my final question for you. They just released the Iron Claw movie trailer.
Yes, they did.
What are your thoughts on the Von Erichs having a movie about their life? Because there's a lot of triumphs and there's a lot of tragedies in that.
I think this with any family, any legacy, there's ups and downs. I mean, history all through the years have always been built on triumphs and collapses, and that family reached the epitome. They reached the top and fell off the top of the ladder. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm sure that I'll find memories. We were in Southwest Championship Wrestling while they were World Class was on top, and then we tragically saw it demise. So until I see it, I don't have any more opinions about it.
I understand. This is a perfect time to announce that coming in December, the Fixx Wrestling podcast will have its first ever annual Bodie Awards, and it was named after our mutual friend Brian Bodie King. So,
Great.
I ask everybody. When I get a date, I will let y'all know when we will have the first annual Bodie Awards. And this affects you too, Mama, because this is named after our friend, and I thought so highly of him. I said I'm going to name the awards after him.
Thank you.
But Mama, I wanted to thank you for coming on, for having a little chat with us. I know you're going to be a busy person. Everybody that's watching, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we will bring you more conversations and interviews with wrestlers and people such as Juanita, who graciously agreed to come on here. Mama, do you have any last words before we end the show?
No, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you advertising the Joyce Grable Memorial. This is a very important show. I'll emphasize over and over and over. You'll see it on my Facebook and on my Instagram. Be there. This may be your last opportunity to see so many of the older wrestlers together in the same building. Franklin, Georgia's not that far down the road. I'll be at a wedding at 2, and I'll be there by 5 at 5:30 at the latest in Franklin, Georgia.
Well, is it going to be televised, or is it going to be on YouTube, or?
I don't know. Ben Masters hasn't said that it's going to be advertised anywhere else. It's a live event. They have not brought in a film crew yet, although it would be nice to, at least wise film it so we can download it, upload it, whatever you do. I'm not good with computers, and share it. We'll see. Like I said, I haven't heard anything about it being, live on YouTube. And in a lot of ways, I wouldn't want it to be live anywhere where somebody can watch. Sorry about that. But because then that takes away from the people being there. So it's, when the tickets are sold out, when the building's sold out, that's it. Even if we film it, it's not the same as getting to meet, greet, touch, talk, walk with these people. Because as we noticed, they're aging out. Our community, the elder community, is becoming smaller. So,
absolutely, Mama, I thank you for coming on the show. I love you to pieces.
Love you, Dom.
And we will talk soon, folks. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more content. You never know when I'm going to come up with another interview.